My name is James, and I've always had a fascination with trains and railway stations. There's something about the constant movement and the hustle and bustle that I find irresistible. So when I had the chance to visit Orlando Central Station, I jumped at the opportunity. However, what started as a thrilling adventure quickly turned into a nightmare. I arrived at the station on a humid summer evening. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the platforms. Despite the crowd, there was an eerie stillness in the air, as if the station itself was holding its breath. I checked into a nearby hotel and decided to spend the evening exploring the station. As I walked through the grand hall, with its high ceilings and ornate architecture, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Later that night, I returned to the station. It was almost empty, with only a few stragglers waiting for the last trains of the day. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant rumble of an approaching train. I wandered down a deserted platform, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. That's when I saw it, a shadowy figure standing at the far end of the platform. It was tall and thin, with glowing red eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure began to move toward me, gliding silently across the ground. As it drew closer, I could see its features more clearly. It was a man, but there was something horribly wrong with him. His skin was pale and stretched tight over his bones, and his eyes burned with an unholy fire. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, I heard a low, guttural growl that sent a shiver down my spine. I turned and ran, my footsteps pounding on the concrete. I didn't stop until I was back in my hotel room, the door locked securely behind me. I spent the rest of the night tossing and turning, unable to shake the image of the figure from my mind. The next morning, I decided to find out more about the station's history. I visited the local library and spent hours poring over old newspapers and records. That's when I stumbled upon a story that sent chills down my spine. In the early 1900s, a series of mysterious disappearances had plagued the station. Passengers and staff alike had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their luggage and personal belongings. The disappearances had been attributed to a Jinn, a malevolent spirit known in Middle Eastern folklore. According to the legend, the Jinn had been summoned by a sorcerer who had died at the station under mysterious circumstances. The spirit had been bound to the station, doomed to haunt its corridors and platforms for eternity. The more I read, the more I realized that the figure I had seen the previous night was the Jinn. Determined to put an end to the Jinn's reign of terror, I sought out the help of a local imam named Yusuf. He was well versed in the lore of Jinn and had performed several exorcisms in the past. I told him about my encounter and showed him the articles I had found. Yusuf agreed to help and suggested we perform a cleansing ritual at the station. We planned to conduct the ritual on a quiet night when the station would be nearly empty. I was both nervous and excited at the prospect of confronting the Jinn, but I knew it was the right thing to do. On the night of the ritual, Yusuf and I arrived at the station armed with holy water, incense, and a copy of the Quran. The station was eerily quiet, the usual hustle and bustle replaced by an oppressive silence. We made our way to the platform where I had first seen the Jinn, setting up our equipment and preparing for the ritual. Yusuf began by reciting verses from the Quran, his voice steady and strong. The air grew heavy, and a chill ran down my spine. I could feel the Jinn's presence, lurking in the shadows, watching us. As Yusuf continued to chant, the Jinn appeared at the far end of the platform. Its eyes burned with rage, and it let out a deafening roar that echoed through the station. The ground shook and a gust of wind swept through the platform, extinguishing our candles. Yusuf held up a vial of holy water, throwing it at the Jinn. The spirit screamed in pain, its form flickering like a dying flame. I could see the hatred in its eyes as it advanced toward us, its movements slow and deliberate. With a final desperate effort, Yusuf recited a powerful verse from the Quran. The Jinn let out one last ear-piercing scream before dissolving into a cloud of black smoke. The air cleared, and the oppressive feeling lifted. The Jinn was gone. The station felt different after that night, lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. The disappearances stopped, and the eerie presence that had haunted the station was gone. I felt a sense of relief and accomplishment, knowing that we had put an end to the Jinn's reign of terror. Yusuf and I remained in touch, bonded by our shared experience. I continued to visit railway stations, but I was always more cautious, wary of the spirits that might lurk in the shadows. The experience at Orlando Central Station left a lasting impression on me. It reminded me of the power of faith and the importance of confronting our fears. The Jinn had been a formidable adversary, but in the end it was our determination and courage that had prevailed. As I stood on the platform watching the trains come and go, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and reverence for the forces that shape our world. The Jinn of Orlando Central Station was just one of many mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and I knew that I would continue my journey, seeking out the unknown and confronting the darkness that lies just beneath the surface.